fans, welcome to the first edition of Geeking Out with Luke and the Legend. I'm your host, the Legend T. James Logan. Sitting next to me, my co-host of madness for this thing, Luke Mattson. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Wow. We'll see how about having you goes as the show goes on. Anyways, you know what? Me and Luke, we hang out a bit. We see movies every single week.
Yeah.
We talk a lot of TV. We're even in a bit of a geeky, the ultimate of geeky, which we're going to talk about in the third segment. I'm not going to mention now because I don't want people to go, oh man, and turn it off. But we'll get there. We'll get there. First of all, Luke, have you seen any really cool movies that pop to your mind right now? Something that, and why? What was cool about it?
You know, actually, we just saw the new Predator movie.
Mm-hmm. That we did.
Man, it was, I'll tell you, it was pretty good. You think back to Predator, and there's been some iffy movies in the past.
I can think of a whole bunch of iffy movies in that series.
Of course, you know, and some really messed up plot flaws. But this one, it had enough humor in it to make it, you know, not so serious, but it still followed the rules of physics and, you know, a good storyline. Man, it was just all around, I think, a really good movie.
Well, I think one of the things I really enjoyed about this was the ensemble. There was a lot of interesting characters in there. Think guys you wouldn't expect, like what's that guy name from Key and Peele?
Yeah, Keegan-Michael Key was in there.
Yeah, he was. I can never remember his name, but he was in there, which is odd for this kind of action movie. There's a few other guys, but the one that got me the most, and it was so funny because we talked about it later, and both of us went, holy crap, we didn't even really notice. But there's a character in there kind of hidden under a hat all the time. Like he's kind of slinking in the back, doesn't really look too ominous, but he's got Tourette's syndrome. And he probably has the best line we've heard in a movie. I swear, when we heard this line, we both looked at each other and we both said we're saying it at work. And now, because of the constraints of our show, I can't say the line exactly, but it was like, copulate me in the face with an aardvark. And the word copulate was not being used. It was a 4-letter word. But that had to be the funniest stuff I heard in a while.
Yeah, I would have to agree, you know. And I still can't believe that was the actor.
Yes, and we didn't even say who the actor is. You can let it out. Who was that actor that we should have known?
I can't remember.
You can't remember. It was Thomas Jane, the guy who played the original Punisher in the remake of the before Punisher. Well, the one after Dolph Lundgren. That's the best way to put it.
Well, you know, before it became cool. That's
yes. Well, he was kind of cool, right? Like that show.
A cool movie, but it wasn't.
The Punisher wasn't cool.
Well, no, it wasn't a mainstream thing. No. You know, you'd have to know who the Punisher is to want to see the Punisher then. Now they slap a superhero logo on something and everybody's going to go see it.
Exactly. And now, this is just going to throw way off, but do you remember the original Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren? That's
before my time.
Oh, man, this was as brutal. Predator seemed like Shakespeare compared to the original Punisher. It had Dolph Lundgren. If anybody remembers this idiot, he doesn't he do those movies, the Expendables. Yeah, he's in there. He's that big dude he played in the Rocky movies. He was the Russian Drago guy, and trust me, he spoke even better in the Russian movie than he did in this movie. Basically, he walked around. He didn't say anything the entire movie except, out of nowhere, he says this soliloquy of like, I ask myself, why do the innocent die and the guilty go free? Someone has to punish them. Oh my Lord. That is the worst comic book written crap from the 70s I've ever, and this movie was made probably 80s or 90s, but that's what old bad comic book writing was about.
Yeah, you know, that's when you follow the old comic to the T to make the movie, and maybe you should have taken some liberties to write in some more lines and change some things up.
Well, that's when you kind of remember that the movie audience might not necessarily be 12-year-olds.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I remember reading some comics when I was young, and you're going, man, this is thrilling. But, you know, you're 12 years old, and you got to keep your attention. So they're putting down, 5 words on a page so you don't get bored, and then you're on to the next page. Man, you gotta fill it in a little bit more. Yeah, and
as we get older, let's face it, we need that fill in. I mean, if we were really to make comic books, movies into like the comics, they would be either over in 5 minutes because so much junk just moves around, it's all art, or the fact that it's so dumbed down at times. I mean, today comic books are a little better, but growing up, Yeah, comic books were kind of like I could see why people thought it was the death of, intellectualism.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember some comics where there was no words for 4 or 5 pages.
Oh, yes. And those were the super artist guys. Remember those days? Yeah, the Image comics. Yeah.
Quality stuff.
We went a little off. We'll get back on the comics here, but let's finish off the Predator. The reason, you made a good point. It did have a lot of interesting stuff. It was funny. There is so much humor in this, and I know a lot of people were worried that maybe the humor would ruin the show. And I say this: me and you can sit there with our wives, who we dragged obviously to a Predator movie, who we dragged there, and they actually enjoy it without sacrificing the fact that people are getting ripped apart violently and there's lots of Predator crap going on, and they still actually enjoyed themselves. To me, that's kind of the cool missing thing that shows like this sometimes don't get. There's nothing sadder and lonelier than a bunch of us guy geeks sitting in a movie theater by ourselves watching movies, not being able to, because if you tell your wife or your girlfriend or even your sister, if you're that lonely, that they're just going to gloss over the first 2 sentences in that you describe it. This was kind of nice that there were ladies there that enjoyed the show.
Yeah, getting ready to go to the movie, I told my wife, I said, we're going to go see Predator, and she kind of sighed. You could tell she was not that excited about it.
She was waiting in. She was going to make us go see some crappy teenage or rom-com or something as payment for this.
Some romantic something or other for sure. And then when we got out of the theater, we sat down, and she goes, "Wow, that was a really good movie." I mean, there's points in the movie that I had issues with. There's a guy that he's a villain throughout most of the movie, and you learn to hate him. You really do. And you want him to be, taken down. And then at the very end of the movie, he switches sides all of a sudden, to help.
No payoff. No payoff for the hate.
I know. And then they get rid of him, like the Predator kills him, and it's so quick that you almost don't notice it. And the whole movie's building you up to get rid of this guy, and you're like, yes, get him. And then you almost don't notice that he's gone.
And you know what? For us, it was kind of poetic because me and you have struggled with a TV show that our wives have foisted upon us constantly called This Is Us. If you want to learn to become a crybaby dude, sit and watch this show and bawl your eyes out, I guess. But the guy that Luke's talking about was this fellow who he's on This Is Us. He's the main character on there, and he plays a totally different character. He's actually got testicles, I believe, in this movie, unlike This Is Us. But and this is the part too. I could have taken an anticlimactic death if it was shot in the way where it made you give you that sense of this guy was such a douche that he didn't even deserve a glorious death. But no, it was just so forgettable and unremarkable and boom done that it was kind of it was missing the payoff that sometimes you build hated characters for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you're talking about poetic deaths, though, the character played by Keegan-Michael Key and Thomas Jane, my God, that was heart-wrenching and touching like you wouldn't believe. They were best friends in the film, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'm just saying, go check out this movie. You got to see it.
Yeah, and what we're touching on there is this scene is the kind of scene where it demonstrates that ultimate brotherhood and friendship and just coming together in a way that I can't ruin it by telling you, but I got to admit that was a very powerful scene that I would not expect from those two in this movie, because even leading up to it, they seem like the jokey Laurel and Hardy, and they liked each other, hate each other, who knows, they motivate each other, but at the end, it was a real testament of friendship, and that is something that I sometimes think's lacking in movies these days, is that the poetic bonding of men.
Yeah. Actually, I don't remember the last movie I saw where there was
that sort of deal,
the brotherhood bond like that, and it displayed that.
Now, I'm going to throw two movies at you right now from the when I was growing up, and they were, to me, the ultimate men's movies growing up. When I'd see guys and hang out, I'd say, dude, you got to watch this with me, right? One of them was called The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans, and it had that sort of elements in the end. The ultimate guys who forced together, don't like each other, end up being watching each other's back. And there was that one, but the other one, and this one might be obscure, and I know it's going to float in your mind, and you're going to go check this out. It's called Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. It was called Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and it was Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke, and they played two guys. Whoa, did Superman just pop in here?
Don't worry about that.
Don't worry about that. I'm not saying we can be geeky, but that was actually, if you heard that, the Superman thing was his phone thing. And I could laugh at that, but every time someone texts me, it sounds like Pac-Man dying in the video game.
Well, that's not much better. I promise you.
Although, just as a quick aside, the best used to be, my phone, anytime when people would phone me, it would be Iron Man by Black Sabbath, unless my wife phoned me, and then it was Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden, which made everyone laugh, of course.
Oh, that's great. That's a good one. I was going to put my wife's ringtone to the Imperial March from Star Wars. You know,
yes,
when Darth Vader's coming
yes,
in?
the deaths, yes.
That was the one I was going to use. But she didn't like that idea.
Yeah, the girls.
I lost my phone once, so I said, hey, can you call my phone? And she wasn't so happy when it started, dun, 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 dun. She knew where it was from, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, women can be they can be a little touchy about those sort of things. Now, this movie, I would, if anyone out there is wondering what's a really solid guys movie, and I know it's kind of too obscure-ish. Well, they're not obscure, but it's hard to believe that Don Johnson and Mickey Rourke would have such a good movie. But it's about these guys who belong in a kind of a group, and they end up coming up with this idea it's like in the future where everyone's poor and stuff, and they end up robbing this bank, but it ends up being that they rob from this corporation that sends these killers after them, and it's a really solid movie. And it's just like in the vein of, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid being surrounded by the Bolivian army with the two of them holding their guns looking at each other going, well, we're going out in a blaze of glory type thing. That is something that's kind of been missing, I think, in movies. And I think that's something that should come back, because that scene alone had the impact and the gravitas, and whoa, those are big words. But they had the impact there that I think maybe, don't you think that should be something that maybe we should look at more in some movies these days?
I mean, not in every movie.
No, not in every movie, but at least some movies?
It's not in enough movies, that's for sure. It's not in enough movies. Well, I don't know.
Well, you know what? We've spent a lot of time talking about Predator, and we've jumped off the rail a lot about stuff. But there are some great movies coming out. I know we're trying to get together to see Venom. Hopefully, we'll be able to give this is a movie that's got me questioning, guys. Venom without Spider-Man? I don't understand that, so hopefully this will make sense to me.
I don't know how that's going to be. It's going to be really strange. I feel like they're going to paint Eddie Brock as a victim when, if you've read the comics, in a lot of ways he's not the victim at all.
No, he's not. He's a dick.
I mean, now and then he does some nice things for people, but it's for his own gain.
Right.
It's not for other people. So.
And when you think about the origin of Venom himself, it's Spider-Man's old black costume, which turned out to be a symbiote, and Eddie Brock, who hate him. They're motivated by hate. Their mutual hate marries them together to become Venom. And how can you make that a sympathetic character of someone built on hate and trying to destroy someone else's life?
Exactly.
Maybe like Bill Collectors, I've heard, I guess.
I don't know. I've heard. Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, so I didn't want them to ruin it for me. But I heard at the end they hint at another movie coming after, and it's going to have Carnage in it, or so I've heard.
Oh my! Well, we're not going to talk any more about this. We're going to get a chance to see this movie down the thing. Now, we recently also saw a movie just a little while ago that kind of surprised us. The week before that, going into this, I'm going to be honest, man. I did not think that this would be something we would ever talk about, because just the idea seemed a little absurd, but it was so well done, so funny. It was called The Spy Who Dumped Me, with Mila Kunis as this girl who, her boyfriend doesn't respond to her text, so she burns all his crap. But it turns out he's actually an international spy / hitman / something, and she gets embroiled in it's almost like those Johnny English movies, only she isn't dumb, she's just not sure what's going on, and it's funny.
Well, on the isn't dumb factor, her friend who is with her is dumb.
But she's also got more balls than most men I've ever seen in my life.
Almost every man I've ever seen in my life, let's be honest.
She's out there. She really puts herself out there.
You know, I was so surprised by that movie too. I went into that one and I was the one going, "Oh, we're gonna go see this movie," you know. But that was our ticket to Predator. To be honest, we had to go see that movie, so they would have to go see Predator.
And how did we win? Since this was a good movie, and Predator was good enough that we don't have to pay back a crap movie.
Bingo! It couldn't have been more beautiful. You know, it was a great movie. I think it was an extremely funny movie. The comedy between the two main female characters was fantastic.
Now, I got to say, both of us like movies, but we're not going to lie, people. The main motivation of when we try to see movies on a Wednesday night is our theater gives you bring your own bowl night. Basically, if you purchase a medium drink, they will fill whatever bowl you bring. And me and Luke here, man, we bring out giant salad bowls and they fill it. We know the owner, so he fills them up with. They're like 2 or 3 sizes big of the large, and we sit there. We eat so much popcorn. I think we're either going to die of some kind of weird blood problems or something's going to a heart attack straight, to the heart.
That's the one. It's going to be just a salt overdose, cardiac arrest. That's it. It's over.
And he's putting butter on ours.
Why would you not put butter on your popcorn? They say, "Do you want extra butter on that?" Well, I'm not going to say no.
I'll tell you a really quick story. The best day of my life. Now, you got to remember, I'm a little bit older, so I've been going to movies a long time, and it's always been the same. You go to the place, you order popcorn, you say, I like butter. Now they charge you, like the Famous Players is ridiculous. They charge you for everything. Not only do they charge you $1 to put it in the middle, the same amount, but they also charge you another $1 if you want extra and in the middle. So their little sales really just gouge you out. But so anyways, it's always been like that. So one day I go to Ontario with this old girlfriend of mine, and she takes me to this crazy movie theater. It was called like Movie 24. There's 24 theaters in this place. There was movies running till 3 a.m.
What?
Yeah, and if there's if there was a big release, it was playing like on basically like 4 screens, so it was playing like every half hour at some time. So I go to this place and I get in line, and today this is common and we see this a lot, but not back then, my friends, not back then. This was like paradise. Okay, I order a popcorn and they have all the popcorn pre-pop sitting underneath these like lights, and they reach over and they hand me this popcorn, and I say to them, "Oh, I would like some butter on that." And then I got to tell you folks, what happened next was the greatest moment of my life. They said, "No, you put it on yourself." And they aimed me over there, and I swear I was drinking popcorn soup and sipping out of the bag of pure butter. I'm pretty sure it's taken 3 years off my life, but I got to tell you, friends, it was so worth it. So this is one of the segments we're going to continue to do is we're going to look at movies. Me and Luke, we go to movies quite a bit together. We're obviously not going to tell you the crap ones we're going to see because we got wives and we are going to get tricked or not, or we're going to be forced to take them to this because we traded off with something. But I do know this. I am going to try and see the new Halloween movie soon. I'm going to hopefully try and drag Luke with me. And I know our wives won't go in on that one, but it looks great.
The other one I wanted to see with you was The Nun. That's another new one.
We tried.
We still got to catch it sometime. Carnival, maybe.
All right. So, folks, we're going to come back in our next segment. We're going to talk about some TV shows, probably look at a few Netflix weird things. And what else? You're geeking out with the legend and Luke.
Hello, friends. This is Spencer Love, your host of Over the Top Rope on the Win Column Sports Network. Don't forget you can head to wincolumnsports.ca for all of your previews, reviews, and breaking news from the world of wrestling, be it your major promotions or from the great province of Alberta, Canada.
Hey, folks, we're back for segment 2, talking about television. Now, Luke, first of all, we've got tastes all over the spectrum. I'm going to let you talk, first of all, a show you were just telling me about, and maybe give people a bit of context of why this kind of show appeals to you.
The show I've been watching, it's called Forged in Fire. I'm sure some of you have probably seen it. It's about blacksmithing. So 4 people come in, elimination type rounds, until there's one guy left and he wins, $10,000 and he gets dubbed Forged in Fire Master or whatever. I can't honestly remember that part, but it's a really, really good show. It appeals to me. I am I work in mechanics by trade, so, making things with your hands and working with that type of stuff, it really is just enjoyable for me to watch and to see them create the things they do out of, sometimes it'll be, oh, you have to use only things off this motorcycle to make your weapon, or, or a pile of scrap, saw blades, and you got to use this, forge it down and make it into, a billet and make it into a knife. So it's really fascinating to watch that kind of stuff. Now, the 4 people come in, and
Thunderdome rules. Only one comes out.
Only one does come out, but not like that.
Oh, okay.
Not like the Thunderdome.
No deaths?
Well,
Forge your own weapons and kill each other?
First one done usually wins. No. So, anyways, they're usually, the first round, they have to make a knife of some sort. And sometimes, there's rules of what kind of knife or how big it has to be and all this. So they do that, and it's usually pretty rough. And then the judges go ahead and judge who did the best, if they met the parameters they had to. And then the guy who's, not the worst, I'm not going to say, but, out of the 4, yeah.
The guy who isn't the best.
The guy who isn't the best, yes.
Or the top 3.
Is asked to leave, kindly asked to leave. And then the second round starts, and that is to put a handle on your weapon and to have it sharp and ready to go, because after that they do serious testing. There's usually a blunt force trauma type test. I've seen them smack knives against ice blocks, against nails, cow femurs, and to see how the edge holds up, and then they test how sharp it is after that.
That's actually pretty cool.
And then, oh yeah, it's amazing what some of these knives can handle without snapping or chipping, Some of them do snap and chip, though.
Of course they do. Sure wouldn't be fun if it didn't.
Oh, absolutely.
Has anyone made a lightsaber? No, go on. Sorry. Those jewels are really hard to find. Those crystals. Anyways.
Those, you don't get those just anywhere. But after the second round, the guy who did not the greatest on that one, he's asked to leave. And on the last round, each of the last 2, they're sent home for 5 days, and they have to recreate a weapon from history. It could be the claymore, it could be a halberd. There's some really bizarre weapons that I'm learning about that I've never heard of. Jumanji Yari, which is it's a strange trident spear from Japan that the samurais use.
I was going to say look like Robin Williams.
That's what I thought. I saw the title of the episode, and it said Jumanji. It was spelt a little wrong, but I'm sitting there going, I don't hear the drums.
I always hear the drums. Anyway, sorry. I wake up in the morning and the drums have started.
I'm sure you do. But yeah, it's a really fascinating show to watch, and it's thrilling to watch people fail sometimes.
But also to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
In the third thing that you
on the last round is when I get the most excited to see what they've created, because to recreate some of those weapons is really impressive, and some of them, man, they come out really nice, and you're going, man, I would want that, up on my wall.
Now, I got a question for you. This just popped in my mind, and I haven't seen this show. Now, we talked, when you told me, when you pitched that you were going to talk about the show, and you kind of described it, using the example of shows like Chopped or Top Chef, where they have people competing, and I get that. The thing that ticks me off about those kind of shows is the whole BS advantage thing, where somebody gets an advantage going into the next round. Do they have that kind of garbage, or is it all still... Because this is my problem. If you're on Top Chef and you go into the one round where you guys make something, and the guy who wins, he gets an advantage where he gets to skip the round or do this, and that makes me mad, because I think if you want to prove yourself the best, why would you take a skip? Why would you take some kind of advantage to win? That to me is not even winning, and to me that's just a cop-out. Is there that kind of stuff, or is this just actual straight-up people competing?
You know what? There's zero advantage. You make your own advantage. In the first round, if you're quick enough making the shape of your blade, forging that out, maybe you can get it sharpened before the end of the round. It's 3 hours.
Yeah.
As far as you can get, you can get.
Now that is the kind of advantage I think is cool.
Because, that's the earned advantage. You got yourself that far. You don't get, oh, you start 10 minutes earlier than the next guy. No, there's none of that. So the next round is just another solid 3 hours. They all start at once. Once it's done, it's done.
Now, there's no wrong opinions here, just wrong people. What do you what do you what do you think of the advantage in that they have? Do you think that's something that's cool, or like some people say it's okay, and they think I'm a little bit neurotic in the fact that I don't think advantages are cool in actual competition, because like I said, it's cool if I win the first event. But, and I'm not trying to be super egotistical. If I was in any kind of thing and I won the first thing and they said to you, you can sit out this round, I'd say, no, give someone else that, because I want to win this and say that I won as consistently across.
I totally don't agree with the advantage aspect of any of that. Because have you really won at that point?
Yeah, you've tricked the system.
Sometimes the advantage is, you've won the first round. Next round, you get to start and you get to use this, and nobody else can use this. Well, you're probably going to win the second round. And then there's the opposite kind of advantage. Oh, you came in last, so you get to start first. And that's not fair to anyone either. But everything is like that nowadays.
Yeah, I don't like that.
That stems across to something we'll talk about later at another day is video games too, and they do that too. They've made it so if you're winning, it'll say you have the same health, but you actually have less.
Oh.
And that is a known fact. They do that so that the people losing, the first timers, they just started playing this, so they can get a kill or whatever. So they can do well a little bit, because the guys who are doing really good, you're able to get them, and beat them. Why? Because they had a handy, what would it be? They had some
handicap.
They had a handicapped, anyways. So I don't agree with it at all.
Well, you know what? You've just made me pop up something that's way off topic, not TV, and I won't get into it now. But one thing we're going to talk about someday is I love games that you can get like on your pad or that you can download, and I think it's fun. And I hate the fact that you can purchase money. You can use real money to buy like a whole bunch of hidden things and advantages. And it all culminates, folks. There's a South Park episode out there with where these games were directed by, unfortunately, the Canadian devil, who pooped out. He'd fly around and poop out little. Anyways, I don't like that idea. I've even done it. Like when I first hopped up, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I look at my credit card and I put like $30 in a month on crappy little advantages, and I'm like, I am dumb, because that is a sucker system.
Absolutely, and I've done it too. I've done it for things
Everyone
that aren't
has
advantages.
done
Oh,
Yeah.
look it, my guy looks cooler now. Well, does it make you better? No, absolutely not. How much did that cost? Well, it was $32, but it's worth it. Is it? Is it?
You know what? We were talking. You talked about something that was close to your heart because of the way you work and the things that you're interested. I'm going to throw a show out there that's a Netflix show that is kind of for me. People who do know me know that when I'm not going out just being a general legend and all, no, just when I'm just out there, just when I'm not in front of the microphone and piling on truckloads of crap, like I pretend to say, I'm a professional. Yes, yeah, it's right there. I'm a professional chef, and so sometimes food things annoy me, or not annoy me. I like them, and I thought them annoying because I don't like when I watch competition and I see these stupid advantage systems. You can't tell me that you won Best Chef in Canada because you had a whole bunch of advantages and managed to win that way. You're just the guy who, you're not the best. The best is in there working hard. And I can handle the fact that I'm not the best, or that I enter competition. If I lose and the guy beats me fairly, hell yeah, he deserves to win. He gets an advantage of some weird ass thing and managed to get by me. That's crap. It's not real. So, but the show I'm going to suggest is called Chef's Table, and it's on Netflix, and it does something unique. It shows you to be a real chef, you need a creative aspect in you that's hard to describe. Now, there's been years that I've spent as a head chef at places where I've had to go into the pure creation mode. So I know what that's like to go down those roads of what you do with food and how you look at it at so many different ways that people don't consider. And so for me, that's cool. And I want people to see that. And I get very annoyed when you turn on the Food Network and there's celebrity chefs like Bobby Flay and all these name guys who don't really seem to do a lot, but criticize other people. And I wanted to see, and then you know what? You could say, oh yeah, Bobby Flay, famous chef, but you know what? I bet you if you looked at the top 100 restaurants in the world, he's probably on the lower end of the spectrum, his restaurants. So it makes you think, what about the guys in the top 10, the top 20, the places where, because there's places you go out there where it costs you $800 for one sitting. So what kind of chef is there? What kind of food are you dealing with? And that's sort of what the whole premise behind Chef's Table is. They looked at the real chefs in, like the head chefs of major restaurants and showed you what's a bit of a journey into their mind, into their creativity, and to their work. And some of the episodes will get you from how hilariously silly some things are. There's an episode featuring a Russian chef who his whole shtick was, because Russia had gone through the revolution in the 1900s and then went communist and all this, and now it's where it's at now in a more free market. He realized a lot of culture had been lost over the 100 years. So he was going back and finding recipes from the turn of the century and recreating them at his restaurant. And there's some of them are just like reindeer nose.
I want to try that.
Yeah, reindeer nose. Who doesn't want to try?
I would definitely eat that. On the creativity subject, just so you know, I put whipped cream on a beef sausage once. I'm just telling you, try it.
There's times like this I wonder why I don't beat Luke to death, but that's okay. That's okay.
Because he hasn't had whipped cream on a beef sausage. You ever put it on a chicken tender?
Plus, I'm not kidding. He's probably made many shivs, and he's holding them now, so I am not going to...
I do watch a lot of shows when they make stuff, you know.
Anyhow, I am going to make you watch an episode someday. But then it goes on to stuff like there's a guy in New York, and anyone who tries out this, and they're hearing about this the first time, and you want to see what the coolest episode you've ever seen in your life of the show, it's season 2 of Chef's Table, and it features a guy called Grant Osage, who is a guy from Chicago who has started the whole molecular gastronomy stuff, where he combines science into food and he creates things. Yeah, he in that episode, he was the first guy to create a floating dessert that actually floated. An edible. He made an edible candy balloon, and that was totally 100%. Yeah. Of a side note, his is $600 a person per his setting thing.
Okay, I'll go one day. When I'm about 80, I'll save up, take the wife on a date, and then we'll probably have to just get in the coffin and be done, because who can afford anything after that?
Yeah, no kidding. But amazing things behind. I really like that. It really delves into some of these chefs are guys that you're like, oh, that guy's cool. Some are like, wow, that guy is batshit crazy. Some guys are like pretty cool. Like it's all over the spectrum, but you see the creativity. Even if you don't like the guy's personality, you're like, that guy has a look and grasp of food that I would never even contemplate. And so I would suggest that Netflix Chef's Table, I believe it's called. We were just watching a few minutes ago because I was trying to sell Luke on The Punisher, played by John Barenthal, because we talked earlier about Thomas Jane, and his was an okay movie. And when I found that John Barenthal, and we all know him from Shane on The Walking Dead, was going to become the Punisher for the Netflix Daredevil series, many people went, really? And because, every time you saw Shane, all you thought, whatever you saw him in, oh, that's Shane, right? But when you watch him in The Punisher, I guarantee, or in Daredevil, I guarantee you, after the second episode, you don't look at him as Shane anymore. He is the Punisher. I've never seen a guy who really grasped the whole essence of what the Punisher was more than this. And I've always grown up as a Daredevil fan. We've talked about comic books, and we might talk a bit about comic books in the third one, in the third segment today. But the Daredevil series, the Daredevil movie, I know it's universally hated. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, so many people hate it. I loved it because it told the story of what got me into Daredevil, even though it was poorly done and it was pretty stupid at times. It told the story I wanted out there. But this finally, the Daredevil series on Netflix is really good. It's almost like, it's that what we talked about, that graduation up from the comic book of a 12-year-old reading to a real person who wants to see the realism in that character. The Daredevil series is right on point. It's like, what if the circumstances happen to you, this is how it could play out.
When you mention, him playing the Punisher. You showed me that clip, and it really did sell it to me, because before I saw this clip, I would have seen him and thought, oh, that's Shane from The Walking Dead. And you know what? The Walking Dead made me hate him.
Oh, yeah. His character was not nice.
Sure, Rick's been in the hospital, but he comes back and his best friends with his wife, and and I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And then they get, argumentative. So I never liked him. As you see his face, you're like, oh, Shane, I hate that guy. But then you showed me this clip, and he's absolutely right. He is the Punisher. He really embodies it, and I think he did sell me on the show. I'm going to have to go look it up now and watch, probably binge watch a bunch. But.
Yeah, I'll tell you though, the first, for you comic book fans, the first season of Daredevil, and it's Netflix, so seasons are like 10 shows. The first episode, or the first season, unless you're really into Daredevil, it's a little bit hard, okay, because it really delves into Daredevil. Season 2 is a giant fresh air because it Enter the Punisher. And the Kingpin, and it gets pretty amazing stuff. It's been renewed now, I hear, for a third season, and they are talking that I think that they might have, for comic book fans will know this. If you're not a comic book fan, you'll just be blanking out. That third season, I believe, might be Daredevil versus Bullseye. So that'll be some interesting stuff coming up. Also, Netflix does, in fact, play the first season of The Punisher, which continues where season 2 of Daredevil ended, and interesting show. He is the anti-hero, because there's times in that show where you're like, what a dick, and there's times like you're very sympathetic to what he does. And I had a discussion with a friend at work recently about The Punisher, the whole idea of the character, and he said, oh, the anti-hero, and I'm like, no, Wolverine's the anti-hero. Wolverine is the guy who may do some crappy things, rough things, but he is heroic at heart. Punisher, okay, his family was killed. He goes on a revenge thing. Now, first of all, revenge is not a very noble thing whatsoever. Second of all...
Sure is fun to watch, though.
Yeah, but second of all, he has killed like how many people, and I think he's entered serial killer mode, because he's killed enough people that there should not be any revenge left in him.
Well, not much else matters after your whole family gets wiped out, I can understand why he, went that way. But, okay, yeah, you're probably right. There's no conscience left.
There's no conscience whatsoever.
It's all good. But I enjoy watching The Punisher. Even the older, not the old Punisher film, but what's his name again?
Thomas Jane?
Thomas Jane. I thoroughly enjoyed that film, actually.
Well, you know what? There's I don't know if you knew this, and between these segments, I'm going to show you this too. Fans, look this up on YouTube. Look up Punisher Dirty Laundry, and there is a 5-minute little movie that a guy was commissioned to make. It's incredible, and it features Thomas Jane as the Punisher, and it is probably way better than the movie was. So, we're going to go into our third segment right away. I know we got some anime on our heads. We've got some our ultimate geekdom. We're going to call it. We're going to unleash that in the third thing. Yeah, even we went in there going, I can't believe we're doing this, and now we're pretty locked in. So, folks, sit back. The ride is continuing. You're geeking out with Luke and the Legend.
If you like podcasts and you are listening to them on Backbreaker Media, then you should listen to me, Chris Parrish,
And myself, Manoyan.
and the Sounds of Struggle, because we are literally the most entertaining duo you'll ever come across in Western Canadian wrestling, baby,
We talk about things like wrestling,
and other sports we like.
wrestling.
But we won't talk about other sports that we don't like, because it's not that kind of podcast.
Like wrestling
I mean, we like hockey,
and wrestling
and we like football,
and wrestling.
and we also like to drink beer.
While wrestling,
Well, not while wrestling, but while watching wrestling.
yes.
Yeah. If you want to get into a conversation with Maniac and Chris Parrish, then you need to tune into the Sounds of Struggle live on Backbreaker Media.
Every Thursday.
It's when we hope to draw, but sometimes Mike Malawany doesn't do his job right.
Or we're too drunk to forget.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah.
He can bleep out the swear word because we weren't supposed to do that.
Oh,
But
I'll try not to swear. I can't do it.
yeah, let's face it, the two of us, we're real,
And spectacular.
and we're a little bit of all right.
Yeah,
We're also strugglicious.
that we
That
are.
was kind of the key. Supposed to be strugglicious.
Oh, sorry, I'm drunk.
Yeah. So, if you don't want to listen to us, then no, you're stupid because we're entertaining. And if you want to listen to us, then yeah, come listen to us on Backbreaker Media.
Yeah,
Later,
he said.
Later.
Well, time to wake up, boys and girls. It's time for segment 3. The Geeking Out continues. Luke, first of all, I know we're going to talk some real geek stuff here. We're going to talk comic books, we're going to talk anime, and we're going to talk something that's the ultimate geekdom, and I don't care. We're a part of it now. We've been initiated. But first of all, let's talk a little anime, okay? I know you love anime. What's right now the anime? If you had to sell to somebody, say this is what, or even what you're currently watching, what would you want to throw out there today?
You know, my problem is I have nostalgic love. So the only anime that I like to watch right now is the new Dragon Ball Super, you know? And I know a lot of people, they like to say Dragon Ball is, that's just lame
kids.
anime, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't care, you know? Dragon Ball, yeah, the original, and Dragon Ball Z, it was very PG for kids, at least in North America.
Yeah, I was going to say the North American versions.
I know the Japanese version is a far different thing. But now with Dragon Ball Super, it seems that I don't know, there's more leniency, I think, on what you put on TV. And the channel they're with now is not just a kids channel. So they have a little more freedom. There is some swearing in it, you know, and there is some more realistic. The characters are much more relatable when they talk more like adults and not children. And it's, you know, it's still the same kind of show, you know, the classic rise to face the odds, the impossible odds, I guess you would say. So it's still the same thing, but I can't get enough of it. You know?
Fair enough. I can't mock you because, like, when I started with anime, the draw-in for me was Sailor Moon. And the original Sailor Moon, you know, I started, somehow I had a friend who started watching him, and he's like, you know, he got me to watch it a bit, and it's a girl show in a way. For the North American version's very watered down and some stuff, but I didn't know that. But the themes in it touch more than a lot of cartoons did, and I didn't really have a lot of experience with anime, so I watched it, and then somebody brought me some Japanese translations with, you know, like subtitles, and it's totally a different show, and it kind of opened my eyes to what kind of shows could be out there. And today I'm going to throw out one of my favorite, and we're going classic here, is Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist is a very interesting show that has to do with the whole idea of, in this universe, everything has to be balanced. That if you take something away, something has to be given back. And that's the whole point they have of alchemy, is they're trying to create things, but for everything that you create, something has to be destroyed. For everything you destroy, something is created. And the story is about these two young boys who are alchemists. They've been learning to be alchemists as they accidentally open this portal, and their mom gets killed. Or no, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. They're playing around with portals and things like this. Their mother dies. So then the older boy decides he's going to try and bring her back to life through alchemy. And when he does, he unleashes some things on the earth, but he also ends up paying a price for, like they said, there's a balance. He ends up losing his arm, and his brother ends up losing his body. So his brother's consciousness gets trapped in a suit of armor, and he has a missing arm. And together, they're years later, and they're still trying to figure out alchemy. And he's now called, and I won't explain why he's called Full Metal Alchemist. As you watch the show, you realize it's a kind of a mean...
I thought it was because his brother's in armor.
No, that's what everyone assumes when they meet the brother. They assume he's the Full Metal Alchemist. It's actually his brother. And the reason why, you learn later on, it's actually a mocking title that it was given to him by the head guy to make fun of the fact that he has a metal arm. So, as you watch the show, it's all about that balance. And as the show goes on, the main character's whole drive is to try and find his brother's body again, to figure out a way to bring his brother, so his brother's not trapped in this suit of armor, because that's all he is. He's a walking essence in a suit of armor. And there's so many cool things going on in this. It's a classic, There's even, believe it or not, if you look on either Netflix or YouTube, there is a live action version of it, which I've seen, which isn't as good, of course, as the cartoon because you can't really show a lot of things, but it sure wasn't as terrible as, say, Tekken, the movie was.
And I guarantee it wasn't as terrible as Dragon Ball Evolution.
I have not seen that. I didn't know there was a Dragon Ball live action.
Don't waste your time.
Okay.
It's not at all the manga or anything. It's like its whole own thing. You got to go into it with a bare mind because.
Well, that's like that movie. One of my favorite games of all through the years has been Tekken. And they recently had a Tekken movie come out a couple of years ago. It's absolute garbage. It has nothing to really do with the series, what was the point? And I think back to stuff like, do you remember when the first Final Fantasy movie came out? The Spirits Within? It had nothing to do with the movie or the game that everyone had been watching, so everyone was very confused by it.
Absolutely. They do that with a lot nowadays. And they're going to do that soon with The Witcher, I hear. They're working on a Witcher show. Hopefully they don't totally butcher that.
Well, what would you say then, in your opinion, the best translation of a video game into a movie?
Oh, man, that's a hard one. I don't know, a lot of people aren't into these types of movies, but the Halo movie, I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not seen the Halo movie.
It's not bad. You know, it's pretty hard to screw up a war type movie, even if it's, futuristic, but they got the suit right. They got, how he would react to things correct, and it's not a bad story.
Okay. Now, a lot of people might, I would give as a runner-up, I really liked Street Fighter, the movie, except it was very bad that they used Van Damme because all of a sudden the minor character was the main character. Blanca was done terribly. This guy in green, it was almost on level with the Incredible Hulk show from the 70s or 80s. But it had a good heart in it, and Raul Julia was M. Bison all the way. So I would give that the runner-up. And now I know you're going to look at me like I'm a freaking maniac when I say this. I loved the Super Mario Brothers movie with John Leguizamo.
I don't even think I've seen that.
You haven't?
No.
Do you know what? I'm going to tell this. I'm letting this out. People don't know this, but it's official because this is from Nintendo, who made that movie. What is Mario's last name?
What?
Yes, they answer what Mario's last name is in the show.
Linguini?
No.
I don't know.
Okay, here's the setup. Mario and Luigi have been arrested. They're in front of a judge.
Okay.
The judge looks down and he goes, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Mario." And he goes, "What's your last name?" He goes, "Mario." And he goes, "What's your name?" He goes, "Luigi." And he goes, "Luigi? And he goes, "No, Luigi Mario. We're the Mario Brothers."
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, I get the joke, and it makes sense now, but
I don't know. It's been universally panned, but I like that movie. There's a whole bunch wrong with it, but it really went out there on a limb trying to do.
I gotta check that out.
It's nuts. It's out there, folks. I'm pretty sure it's not a bestseller of anything. It's my pick for best translation of a video game to a movie. Although, what was that one that just came out with The Rock recently? Rampage was kind of interesting.
I haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh, my Lord.
I know.
You got to see this movie.
I've been meaning to see it. I used to love that game. I would always be either the werewolf or Lizzie, the Godzilla-type lizard, And I don't know why. I had a problem. I liked eating people out of the buildings.
Who doesn't? That was the best part of that game.
It's my favorite thing to do on there. That and just trying to steal everything from your friend who you're playing with. Those old arcade-type games were so good.
Now, we talked a bit about comic books. Can you tell me what was your first experience with comic books and what kind of got you interested in the day? I mean, maybe you're not so much into them now, but what started you on that path when you were young?
I still like comic books, but I don't go out of my way to go look at them or buy them nowadays. But back in the day, my dad was a big comic book collector as well.
What was the main part of his collection?
Oh, man.
Was there something like, did he have one thing that was the thing for him?
His favorite was probably Conan the Barbarian. Mm-hmm. And he would draw, the little next issue cover art that's in the corner?
Yeah.
Tiny little square. He would draw that from the tiny little square, and he'd make it, a quality 20-inch by 10-inch portrait, and he'd draw it out by hand.
That is incredible.
But that was his favorite. That was my favorite too, because I was young And there was a lot of scantily clad women in that. If I'm being honest, that was my drive to look at the Conan comics. And then you end up liking Conan, and he also had a lot of Spider-Man comics. So I was a huge Spider-Man fan growing up. I don't know if I am as much anymore after, a lot of different movies and things that they've...
Don't even try and follow what's happened to Spider-Man over the years. There's been so many crazy things. If I told you, you'd look at me like I was crazy. Like, did you know they did a storyline in Marvel where they introduced the thing called the Clone Saga, where all of a sudden this guy showed up called the Scarlet Spider, and his name was Ben Parker, and he was apparently a clone of Peter Parker. But you know what ended up at the end of the story? They throw away 30 years of continuity and tell you that he is not the clone, but that Peter is. And that Ben Parker was the original.
No.
Stuff. Or how about this? They decide they're going to reboot the universe. So Aunt May dies. So they go to Mephisto the demon, and they decide to reset time, and he has to give up his marriage and to Mary Jane Parker and all that stuff. And they reboot the whole series because he signs a deal with the devil.
Just so they can restart again.
So they can restart and bring back Aunt May.
Yeah. Let's do it all one more time.
I hate that about comic books. I'm sorry.
But at the same time, wouldn't you be disappointed if it ended?
Well, isn't there so many rich characters that would kind of be cool?
It is, but it's still... It makes my heart sad. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine things keeping going on forever either, so... Mm-hmm. It's one of those bittersweet things you have to face, and it reminds you that you're human.
True enough. Do we really need that in comic book world? I knew it. Sorry.
That's true. It's true. Do we need that in comic book world?
I think we do. I think we do.
I think eventually you gotta cut your character and start new stuff. Eventually, there's got to be new stuff. We've been rehashing the same characters for like how long?
True.
70 years?
Unless your name is Superman, Batman, Wolverine, or the Hulk or Captain America. Well, no, they killed Captain America. If you're those four guys, they make so much money. I don't. Why would you?
That's true. And even Captain America, now they're doing the new Marvel movies. I know that Chris Evans, his contract is up anyway. So who knows? They'll probably get rid of Captain America, but he is a great character. I still love him as. I
love Captain America.
So.
Like in a platonic guy would.
I don't mind if they...
I would take some flowers if you gave them to me.
They could just keep redoing the movies every, 20 years. It wouldn't bother me. I'd just
throw in another guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's been the thing. Like, Superman has been done by at least, 5 or 6 actors. Batman by a bunch.
Absolutely, and I don't mind that. What I don't like is when they try over and over and string something out too long, and then it gets bad. It kills itself, Look
like Batman Beyond.
Well, and look at the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies.
Oh, the third one was
Nothing
such a pain.
Tobey Maguire, but
no, he did awesome. The first one was so good.
Worse and worse. Just the writing, everything about it. By the third one, Venom was not right. Nothing was right.
Topher Grace as Venom.
All I see is
Eric
Foreman from that 70s show. That's all I see when I saw that. For me, comic books, I found comic books when I was 13 years old. My grandmother worked at a forestry camp as a cook, and I went up to visit her, and I went to the bathroom, and they had like one of those, it was like a trailer, just in the middle there was a bathroom, it was just a trailer with a few stalls and stuff, and I go to the bathroom, and there was a couple comic books laying there. Now, for me, comic books growing up had been like Archie, Who's the Ghost? Casper, like those kids things, right? So I see this comic book. Sorry, that's just opinion, not a... Don't let me sway you.
Archie versus the Punisher is an incredible comic. I have that comic. You laugh. I'll dig it out sometime.
I've seen it.
It does exist, folks. Archie does take... Well, they don't... He actually teams up with the Predator. But, not Predator. Did I say Predator? Punisher.
I mean, that'd be pretty good too, right?
I think there is an Archie Predator one, too.
No way.
Yeah. But anyways, so I find some comic books laying there. I pick them up. And it was the first comic book that in my mind, that started with me. It was the first, it was the X-Men comic book that started the Days of Future Past. And they made an actual movie of that. One of the last X-Men movies was that. And that started me on, there was a time I think I had the X-Men run probably 175 to about 300. I had every one of them, and I collected. There was a one time back in the 90s, 93, when comics were only $1, $2, $1.50 each, and I was at like $150 a month in comic books I was purchasing. So I used to have crap loads of comics. The X-Men was the biggest thing that I had. I've sold a lot. I've gotten rid of some. Right now, probably the only really cool comic that I have worth the most is I have the second series of the X-Men, #1, signed by Jim Lee with the certificate of authenticity, and I always keep that one around. But comics have been a thing, and it's sort of a phenomenon because when I was younger, if you saw, we were excited when they made a movie or a television show from a comic series, but it was always crap. But we loved it so much, we kind of looked past the crap and tried to go for it.
You'd watch it regardless. You know, oh, this is terrible. No, this is great. But I mean, what else was on TV back then too? Right?
Exactly. Case in point, kids, there is I think it's late 70s, early 80s. They did one season of a Spider-Man live action show. It is absolute garbage. I can't even tell you to look it up. It's so bad, but I used to look every week for it. All right, here's another great one. When I was 9 years old, Battlestar Galactica was like this really cool show. But as I got older and I got it on Blu-ray or DVD, it's absolute crap.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, oh man, everything stems off of things like that. You know, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, and they're all the same show. At least in my opinion.
Yeah,
you know?
no, they're very close. Science fiction really is kind of that genre where you love it because that's actually the familiarity of other things is what keeps you going. But you know what? We're running out of time, and we promised to talk about the ultimate in geekdom.
Oh,
Ultimate
Geekdom.
Yeah, the ultimate geekdom. Now, I was approached by a fellow who asked me if I wanted to join a game. Now, this game is a game that's nefarious in this world. It is a form of the game Dungeons and Dragons. Now, this is a game I've never played, and here I am at 47 years old.
I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, I'm getting that. 47 years old, and I'm playing my first Dungeons and Dragons game. And I go in there, and there's the dice, and I remember making fun of these people. I remember beating up the kids in high school that played this stuff. And I get into it, and I can't believe how fun it is. And then I see my friend Luke, and I said, Luke, you got to join this group. He was kind of like, I don't know. These guys are nerds.
Well, you know, I had heard about it when it first started. Another friend of ours, he said that he was joining this group, and hey, you should join this. And, you know, at the time, I'm like, you know, I don't know if I should. I'm kind of hesitant. I like you said, I made fun of these people. I was not a part of this.
Yeah.
And then when the legend here approached me and said, man, you got to do this, I went.
And let's face it, we went in, we've gone like raided. We have purchased our own sets of dice.
I've purchased 38 sets of dice.
You never told me that. 38? How?
I got a bag that weighs like a pound, and it's all dice.
Wow.
And I got 2 more sets on the way right now from Amazon.
That you got to admit, there's some kind of pride in using those things. It is a game, you know, the version we're playing is called, like, okay, the original Dungeons and Dragons are referred to as Pathfinder, set in the past. We're doing something called Starfinder, which is the same kind of world, but it's set way, way in the future. And it deals with a lot of science fiction, a lot of aliens and lots of things, but it's the same idea of fighting things and
turn-based game,
yeah,
right?
Turn-based with strategy and dice, and I got to tell you, and imagine,
a lot of imagination.
Hey, we look from the first couple times we played to now how we just like fit in and do the, you know, we got our characters down pat.
I mean, on my first game, I did find a small creature that I convinced to jump into a dragon's, well, pretty much down his throat.
To give us 3 seconds. To give us 3 seconds.
Well, and it did save me.
It gave us 3 seconds.
I was able to go find out what was in that room I didn't look at. It was bunk beds, guys. Nothing special.
So you killed a soul for bunk beds. Huh? That's cool. I'm down with that.
I mean, yeah, I didn't even get a chance to sit in the beds to know if they were
I'm throwing a 20 to see if we're friends after this.
Okay. If you crit, man, we are the best of friends.
But we're gonna try and in future episodes maybe talk a little bit more what this game's like, what we're up to in it. It is something. If you've been hesitant to try these kind of games and you know somebody who's enthusiastic, who knows how to play this stuff, if you like imagination, you like board games, strategy games, I got to tell you, every 4-hour session we have just zips by. And it's imagination beyond things. You get to be something else. You get to be in a whole different world, and it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so hesitant to play. I wasn't, and the more I play, the more I enjoy it. And I'm at the point where I could start doing a made up voice for my character, and I wouldn't be embarrassed.
Yeah, it takes a while to get there.
I would have been so embarrassed. But you got, your dungeon master, and he's squawking when to do the noise that this monster is making as it's coming out of the ground or wherever. And you're going, wow, you're really into this. And then you slowly start turning into that and getting more into that,
Yeah, it's really something that you have to try once before you can actually judge it. Now, hopefully, folks, we've talked about some fun things. There's still so many things I've wanted to talk about. I wanted to take a time today and talk about the series by Robert Jordan that I've been reading, a fantasy series that's just crazy off the hook, but we'll save that for another time. We still have some more movies. We're going to come movies constantly, so there's movies we'll talk about. There's TV shows we definitely got to show you. There's always tons of anime and games, and let's face it, you know what? People can say, oh, that's geeking, or that's geek, but you know what? Everybody has one little geek thing that they like.
You know what? Even if it's just playing Mario Kart with your friends, everybody's got something.
And you know what? That's what we're here to. We're going to hopefully give you guys some more things that you're going to find, and you're going to listen to this, and you're going to go try it out, and you're going to go, wow, I would never have found that. And let's just let it go on, because the only way that the geeks world continues is that you keep buying the stuff, watching the things, and doing the things. So this has been a great episode. We like to thank you all for joining us on this journey. Luke, are you doing okay?
I'm doing all right,
All right.
I got my coffee, so I'm doing all right.
He's well caffeinated. I'm sitting here looking at my bottle of Dasani. It's been a great time. You've been geeking out with Luke and the Legend. We'll talk to you guys soon.